Have you ever wondered what everyday life was really like for African Americans through the long struggle for justice? It wasn't just marches and speeches. It was ordinary people living, working, raising families, and never giving up hope for equality. Today, let's take a journey through African American life and the fight for justice, from slavery and Reconstruction, through Jim Crow and the Civil Rights Movement, all the way to the present day. For over 200 years, African Americans lived under slavery. Families were torn apart, and freedom was denied. Yet within the hardship, people created culture, through spirituals sung in the fields, through food traditions carried from Africa, and through resilience that no chains could erase. Even in bondage, they preserved a spirit of survival and hope. When the Civil War ended in 1865, freedom finally arrived, but it was a freedom filled with challenges. During Reconstruction, newly freed men and women dreamed of equality. Schools were built, churches flourished, and for the first time, Black voices entered politics. There was hope for a new America. But soon came the backlash. Jim Crow laws spread across the South, segregation hardened, and violence from groups like the Ku Klux Klan tried to silence progress. Life under Jim Crow meant separate but equal. That was never equal. Drinking fountains, schools, buses, all divided by law. Opportunities were scarce. Yet Black families built strong communities. They created businesses, churches, and neighborhoods that became centers of resilience. Even in the shadow of oppression, everyday life was filled with strength. As the 20th century moved forward, millions of African Americans left the South in what became known as the Great Migration. From 1915 to 1970, they moved north and west to Chicago, Detroit, New York, and Los Angeles, seeking jobs, safety, and a chance to thrive. In doing so, they transformed American culture, carrying with them new traditions, jazz and blues, and stories that reshaped the nation's cities. In the 1920s, Harlem became the center of African American art, music, and literature. This Harlem Renaissance gave rise to writers like Langston Hughes and musicians like Duke Ellington. Their voices carried pride and power, declaring that Black culture was beautiful and unbreakable. By the 1950s and 60s, the struggle for justice could no longer be ignored. The Civil Rights Movement brought courage to the forefront. Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. preached nonviolence and led marches that changed the nation's conscience. From Selma to Montgomery, from the March on Washington to Birmingham, ordinary men and women stood against injustice, demanding their rights. Life in the movement was not just about speeches or headlines. It was children walking into newly integrated schools while crowds jeered. It was families boycotting buses, even when it meant walking miles to work. It was mothers and fathers risking jobs, safety, and even their lives for the hope that their children might finally know equality. In the late 1960s and 70s, voices grew louder and more forceful. The Black Panther Party emerged, calling for empowerment, pride, and community programs like free breakfasts for children. It was a reminder that the fight for justice took many forms, not only peaceful marches, but also bold demands for dignity and power. Even after the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act, challenges continued. Economic inequality, housing discrimination, and police brutality carried the fight into new generations. From the beating of Rodney King in the 1990s to today's calls for justice, the struggle remains unfinished. And yet, through all of this, African American life has been marked by resilience. In gospel music rising from churches, in soul food that nourished bodies and memories, in poetry, hip-hop, and art that told stories of pain and triumph. Life was never just about survival. It was about joy, creativity, and strength in the face of injustice. The African American fight for justice is not just a story of the past. It is a living story shaping America today. From slavery to freedom, from segregation to equality under the law, from marches of the past to protests of the present, the journey is long but unbroken. Justice is not given, it is fought for. And African American life, in all its struggle and beauty, is proof that hope can never be erased.